Hello everyone and welcome to another Endgame episode with Coach B and MasterChess.com. In this video, we're going to take a look at the position that involves a rook and pawn on the 4th rank versus rook, where the defending king is cut off by one file. To fully understand today's lesson, knowledge about the rook and pawn on the 5th rank versus rook is crucial. So let's review that information really quick. With the pawn on the 5th rank versus rook, if the defending king is cut off on the long side of the board, he can only draw if he can challenge the file controlled by white's rook before the white king reaches the square next to his pawn. With the pawn on the 4th rank and the defending king on the 6th rank, black is going to be able to reach the drawing position successfully if he controls the 8th rank with his rook before the opponent's king reaches next to his pawn. If the defending king is on the 7th rank, he also needs to have the move before the opponent's king is next to his pawn. So let's take a look and see why. So in this first position, we can see that black's king is on the 6th rank. Therefore, in order to draw, he needs to be able to control the 8th rank with the rook before the white king reaches next to his pawn. Well, if we look at this position, we can see that the white king is already next to his pawn before black was able to control the 8th rank. Therefore, white should be able to win this game with correct play. So even after rook to a8 controlling the 8th rank, black is not going to be able to draw here and white will win the game. The correct play for white in this position is moving the pawn to f5. And now we can see that the black king is cut off on the long side of the board while the pawn reached the 5th rank. And since the black rook is not able to challenge the e-file before the white king will reach next to the pawn, he will lose this game. After rook to g8 check, the king will move to h5. Rook to f8, king to g6, defending the pawn. Rook to g8 check, king to f7, chasing the black rook away. So after rook to g1 and pawn to f6, there's nothing that black can do to prevent white from reaching the Lucena position and winning the game. After something like rook to f1, king to g7, still guarding the pawn, rook to g1, king to f8, rook to f1, and pawn to f7, white has reached the Lucena position with a winning endgame. Coming back, if black tries rook to a7 with the idea of challenging the e-file that's controlled by white's rook, this is not going to work either. After king to g7 and rook to e7, here white can simply take the rook, because after king to e7 and king to g6, this is a winning pawn endgame. Since that pawn is only going to march forward on the f-file, the only way to prevent that is blocking it, but after king to f8 blocking the f-file, the white king is able to take the opposition with king to f6, and now the black king will have to move away, and after king to e7 and king to g7, there's nothing that black can do to prevent white from simply pushing the pawn and then be able to promote the pawn and win the game. And coming back from the very beginning, after rook to a8, I do want to mention here that if white makes the mistake of not pushing the pawn to the 5th rank, but moves the king to g5 instead, this will be a terrible mistake due to the frontal checks defense. After rook to g8 check, king to f5, rook to f8 check, king to g5, white cannot make any progress. Black is still going to continue checking the king, rook to g8. If the king moves to h6, here's a crucial moment. Whenever the white king is not defending the pawn, the rook needs to attack the pawn again. So after rook to f8, the white king cannot come and attack the rook because the black rook simply will take the pawn. Therefore, the king will have to retreat to g5 and the series of checks will continue and white will not be able to make any progress. Coming back, if instead of moving the king to g5 to defend the pawn, white tries rook to e4 to defend the pawn, well here, after king to d5, black is going to be able to draw again. There's only two replies that white has, either retreating the rook on the a-file, still guarding the pawn, or moving the rook to e5, checking the king. If the rook moves to, let's say, a4, after this, the black king is not cut off on the e-file anymore, so he's going to be able to go to e6 and reach out in front of the pawn. And now, all that white has is either to check the king with the rook or move the king to g6. So if he tries rook to a6 check, the black king is simply going to go in front of the pawn, and after this, let's say rook to a4 guarding the pawn and king to g4, that pawn is lost. If it marches to f5, the king will simply take and black reach the draw. And coming back, if instead of attacking the king with rook to a6, white will try king to g6, taking horizontal opposition, not letting the black king get in front of the pawn. Well, after rook to g8, the king is forced to move out. If he's going to go to h7 attacking the rook will simply go to g4 attacking the pawn, and there's nothing that white can do now to prevent black from taking the pawn. After king to h6, king to f5, rook to a5 check, the king will take the pawn and black reach the draw. And coming back, after king to d5 attacking the rook, we looked at rook to a4. If instead white tries rook to e5 check, well, after king to d6, king to g5, rook to g8 check, king to h6, the rook will simply attack the pawn again on f8, and white doesn't have many options. If the king moves to g5, the black rook will simply continue checking the white king, and white will not make any progress. The pawn cannot march on f5 as black is simply going to take the rook. And if the rook moves away, let's say to a5, well now black can simply take the pawn, reaching a draw this way. Therefore, coming back after rook to a8, white needs to remember that he needs to push the pawn to the 5th rank in order to be able to get a win. In this next position, with black to move, he's going to be able to draw this game. We could see that his king is on the 6th rank, and here after rook to a8, black is controlling the 8th rank before the white king was able to reach next to the pawn. Therefore, he's going to be able to draw this game. After king to g4, black is going to be able to use the frontal checks defense again, and white will not be able to make any progress. After rook to g8 check, king to f5, rook to f8 check, king to g5, rook to g8 check, king to h6. Here, again, black needs to remember that he needs to attack the pawn whenever the white king is not defending it. So rook to f8 is needed, and after this, the white king will have to retreat to g5 defending the pawn, and then the series of checks will continue and white will not make any progress. And coming back from the beginning, after rook to a8, reaching the 8th rank before the king reaches next to the pawn, I do want to mention that pushing the pawn to f5 here doesn't work either. And another drawing technique that black can use here is cutting the white king from the 4th rank. Here, the white rook cannot leave the e-file as the black king will simply go in front of the pawn. His king cannot come and help the pawn, so the only thing that he's got is moving the pawn forward. But after this, black will respond with king to d7, pawn to f7, rook to a8. Now after king to g4, rook to f8 will attack the pawn, rook to f2 defending it, and king to e7. The white king is just too far away and black will capture the pawn, reaching a draw. Coming back from the very beginning, I do want to mention that if black doesn't take control of the 8th rank here and he attacks the white king with rook to f1, he's not going to be able to draw this game anymore, as white will simply reach the loosen up position. And I'm just going to fast forward to the moves to see what's going to happen. Here, white reached the loosen up position with the winning endgame. Coming back, the same thing will happen if black is going to do side checks here with rook to a3. And I'm just going to fast forward to the moves to see how white is going to reach the loosen up position again. And here white reached the loosen up position again with the winning endgame. Therefore, with the pawn on the 4th rank, always remember to take control of the 8th rank with your rook in order to fight for a draw. This next position is very similar to the previous position. The only difference is that the black king is on the 7th rank. With the king on the 7th rank, we said that in order for black to draw, he needs to have control of the 8th rank with the rook and also have the move before the white king reaches next to the pawn. So in this position, if it's white to move, white will be able to win this game, and if it's black to move, black is going to be able to draw. So let's take a look at this position with white to move first. The correct play by white is moving the king to f4, and here black only has two main options, either to challenge the d-file with rook to d8 or to start checking the white king. If he challenges the d-file with rook to d8, well, this doesn't work here because white can simply capture the rook. After black captures back and king to f5, the only way to stop the pawn marching forward on the e-file is blocking it with king to e8, but then white will be able to take the opposition with king to e6, winning the game. And I'm just going to fast forward to the move so you can see how he's going to be able to promote his pawn. And coming back after king to f4, if instead black tries something different, let's say he's going to start a series of checks with rook to f8, well, this is not going to work anymore because after king to g5, rook to e8, king to f5, rook to f8, after the king moves to g6, the frontal checks defense is not going to work anymore because after rook to e8 attacking the pawn, since the black king is not on c6, white can simply defend that pawn with the rook. And now, after something like king to c6, the white king will be able to attack black's rook. After rook to e5, king to f6, attacking the rook again, rook to e8, the pawn will march to e5, giving white the winning endgame. Coming back, I do want to mention that after king to f7 attacking black's rook, king to c5 attacking white's rook does not work here, because here white can simply move to d5 with check, and after the king moves away, white is able to capture black's rook, while black cannot capture white's rook, so therefore white will win this game. Coming back from the very beginning, I do want to mention that if white doesn't move the king to f4 here, but marches the pawn to e5, black is going to be able to draw this game again. And as a general rule, you never want to separate your king from the pawn, because that will increase your opponent's chances of drawing. Here black can simply draw with rook to d8 right away, and now if white captures the rook and black captures back, black is going to be able to draw this game. I'm just going to fast forward through the moves. And coming back after pawn to e5, we also mentioned that black can draw here even with rook to a4, as we mentioned before. Coming back from the very beginning, we saw that if white had the move, he was able to win with king to f4, but if black has the move here, he's going to be able to draw this game, just because he's going to be able to challenge the file right away with rook to d8. If white captures the rook and black captures back, this is a drawn endgame. After king to f4, black is going to be able to block the e file with the excellent move king to e8. Just because the white king is not in front of the pawn, he is going to be able to take the opposition from white. If white is going to move the king to f5, then black is going to be able to take the opposition with king to f7. And coming back, if white is going to move the king to e5, black is going to be able to take the opposition with king to e7, reaching a drawn endgame. And coming back, after rook to d8, if white does not capture the rook here, and let's say he's going to move the rook to a1, well, now the king will be able to go in front of the pawn with king to d6. After rook to d1, king to e7, protecting the rook. We saw that white cannot capture black's rook, as a drawn endgame will be reached, but if he moves the rook to a1, after rook to d6, black has reached the Philidor defense with another easy drawn endgame. Alright, thank you so much for watching this video. I encourage you to visit my website, masterchess.com, where you'll be able to practice these positions against the computer.